Chancellor, I now present a candidate for the degree of Doctor of the University. The Council of the University has resolved to award the degree of Doctor of the University to His Grace the Most Reverend John Bathersby. John Alexius Bathersby was born in Stanthorpe in 1936, where his father was publican of the Country Club Hotel. He attended St Joseph's Convent School in Stanthorpe and then St Joseph's College, Nudgee, for his secondary education. From school he entered Pius XII Provincial Seminary at Banyo in Brisbane. John Bathersby was ordained in 1961 and began his work as a priest of the Toowoomba Diocese. For 7 years he worked as associate pastor in Goondiwindi. This was the beginning of a lifelong love of Western Queensland and its people. Even when serving later on the seminary staff, he would spend much of his summer vacation acting as pastor of Dirranbandi. In 1969 he was sent to Rome, where he gained his licentiate in theology at the Pontifical Gregorian University. Returning in 1972, he began work at the Pius XII Seminary. In 1982, he gained a doctorate at the Pontifical Gregorian University with a thesis entitled The Foundations of Christian Spirituality in Bernard Lonergan, S.J. His own intellectual life has been radically shaped by the Canadian philosopher and theologian Bernard Lonergan. From Lonergan, he gained the theoretical basis for his conviction that the fully integrated human being must experience an intellectual conversion and not just a moral one. Hence his lifelong pursuit of understanding and his support of scholarship in all fields for all people. This also explains his enthusiasm for the Brisbane College of Theology and its affiliation with Griffith University. Moreover, he is a foundation member of the Australian Catholic Theological Association. In Lonergan, he found above all an affirmation of his own definition of the human person in terms of a capacity to wonder. Part of his ministry as priest and bishop has been to evoke this wonder in all those he meets. He discovered it in country people, and despite their lack of space and time, he also finds ways of evoking wonder in city people. In 1986, John Bathersby was ordained Bishop of Cairns. The 6 years he spent there were marked by a deep commitment to the most isolated members of his diocese and to the most marginalised, especially the Aboriginal and Islander people. This commitment was practical and personal, not just public and political. He knew them by name and shared their lodgings at times. He has been a member of the Committee for Ecumenical and Interfaith Relations of the Australian Bishops' Conference since 1988, and he is also co-chair with the Reverend Dr. James Hare of the Uniting Church Roman Catholic Dialogue in Australia, which is located in Brisbane. When in 1992 John Bathersby was appointed as Catholic Archbishop of Brisbane, he stressed his commitment to ecumenical collaboration and to working with others on the questions confronting our society. Since that time, other member churches of Queensland Churches Together would testify to his willingness to fulfil that commitment. John Bathersby hates to see religion treated as if it is irrelevant to life. He believes it is about the deepest level of life, and so the church must be a normal part of all aspects of life in this city. As Archbishop, he can be found at cultural events, football games, the racetrack, lectures and rallies. He refuses to see religion relegated to one area of life. It helps that he likes all these events because of his untiring sense of wonder. John Bathersby was also a member of the executive of the Confederation of Bishops' Conferences of Oceania from 1991 to 1993 and has been a member of the Australian Bishops' Committee for Liturgy since 1986, of the executive of the Australian Bishops' Conference since 1992, and in that capacity a consultant of Pope John Paul II, and finally, chairman of the Queensland Bishops' Conference since 1992. John Bathersby climbs mountains as his relaxation. That is what he has also tried to do in the areas of justice, especially for Aboriginal people, ecumenism, commitment as a church leader to the larger society in all its aspects, the bringing together of city and country, and the eliciting in all of a sense of wonder at themselves and the sheer mystery of life itself. Chancellor, it is with great pleasure that I present to you Archbishop John Bathersby for admission to the degree of Doctor of the University.
I now call upon His Grace the Most Reverend John Bathersby, Doctor of the University, to deliver the occasional address.
Mr. Chancellor, Vice-Chancellor, members of the University Council and Advisory Council, distinguished guests, staff, graduates, and ladies and gentlemen. I thought that, rather facetiously, that after tonight I might be in possession of one of the best collection of hats in Brisbane. To the mitre and the zaquetta, to the four-peaked doctoral beretta, and to my blue toweling mountain hat, I'm now the proud owner of an academic cap. The hats that I wear tend to puzzle and amuse the young. One little fellow in Mareeba years ago, when he saw the mitre, said to me, "Do you have a teapot under your hat?" I said, "No, why do you ask?" He replied, "I saw Dave Allen on television last night wearing one of those things and he had a teapot under it." So perhaps we haven't exhausted all the possibilities of the mitre that I wear. But I'm delighted tonight to receive this honour from Griffith University. It honours not so much me the person, but the church to which I belong, and I would hope organised religion in general. As an archbishop, one of the more delightful tasks is visiting parishes and schools. On such occasions, I talk to the children and accept their questions. A question that is invariably asked of me is, "Do you like being an archbishop?" I usually reply by asking a question in return. What do you think might be the difficulties of being an archbishop? At Bouval recently, one little fellow, quite obviously stressed out by the demands of the morning classes, replied emphatically, "Doing, running, writing." His answer was more insightful than he realised, and I'm sure my secretary Mary Coman, who daily deciphers my scrawl, would have marvelled at such young wisdom. However, apart from running, writing, and a few other pressures associated with leading a community of almost 500,000 Catholics, I do like being an archbishop because it gives me a unique opportunity to share my faith. My greatest concern is always that either through lack of intelligence or energy, I may not do that adequately. The Catholic Church, like other churches, tries to draw people into communities of faith, hope and love from which they go forth to transform society. Occasionally, when the spark of faith erupts in the life of a Martin Luther King or a Mother Teresa of Calcutta or an Archbishop Desmond Tutu, or closer to home in our own marvellous Mary MacKillop, are the results spectacular. Usually, however, faith acts quietly, producing gentle acts of compassion, kindness and forgiveness that, like the leaven spoken of by Christ, transforms society slowly from within. As Gerard Manley Hopkins wrote, "Sheer plod makes plough-down Cillian shine." At its best, religion can be the poetry at the heart of our existence, charging its ordinariness with mystery and its dullness with excitement. That it often does not appear to do so is, I believe, an indictment not so much on those who do not listen as on us who are its practitioners. If Christ came to bring us life and life in its fullness, then surely people have every right to find life in the churches. Often what they find instead is an unhelpful separation from and lack of interest in the world, a distrust of it, and sometimes even a hostility towards it. That, I believe, is a betrayal of Christ and the legacy that he left to us. The relationship between the church and the world is a love-hate relationship and always has been. Nevertheless, the church must be interested in the world and indeed intensely interested. Since the Second Vatican Council, the Roman Catholic branch of the church has become much more culture-friendly as the Council challenged Catholics to look closely at the world, to discern the movement of the Spirit within it, and to encourage and support that movement in every way possible. At another level, however, the Church will always be countercultural, just as Christ himself was. Pope John Paul II is fond of describing the Church, because of its antiquity, as an expert in humanity, and I believe that there's much truth in that description. The world in which the Church finds itself today is an extremely complex one. Professor Charles Mayer of Harvard University, in a recent article entitled "Democracy and Its Discontents," wrote about that complexity. He wrote, "Citizens become uneasy at the noticeable presence of foreign-born, worry about the burdens on welfare and the pool of jobs, and view imported mores, languages and religious manifestations as a threat to the national identity. Casual resort to deadly force seems to become more acceptable, whether among American gangs or German skinheads. Commentators point out, and everyday life seems to confirm, a general erosion of civility, which has taken on an ideological edge. No wonder that the common exhilaration that attended the collapse of communism has largely dissipated. How difficult it is today to recover the spirit of the crowds in Leipzig or Wenceslas Square." Despite the pessimism of that assessment and the fact that he was not talking specifically of Australia, there's nevertheless enough truth in his analysis to warrant our attention. He is not describing an economic crisis which he believed happened in the 70s, nor a political one which he identifies with the 60s, but a moral crisis marked by a sense of historical dislocation, a disaffection with political leadership at all levels, and a scepticism about doctrines of social progress. In response to such a situation, he sees a lack of commitment among intellectuals to ideas of progress and equality, and a tendency among reformers who were tired by the complexity of the issues to give up the struggle. People then, he said, either withdraw behind personal barricades or disappear into cultural ghettos and let the rest of the world go by. The fragmentation then of our society, which is already well advanced, becomes only worse. To this difficult situation, I believe Christianity can bring substantial assistance. Firstly, because of its fundamental belief in creation and incarnation, Christianity brings to our very complex world a love of that world in all its mystery. The world is God's well-beloved world, received by us on trust and meant to be passed on intact to future generations. The concern about the environment that has arisen in recent times is surely a movement of God's Spirit that should be supported in every way possible and embraced by Christianity, even as it arrives on the scene a little late and a little breathless. Secondly, to the problems of the world, Christianity brings a vision of hope. All things are possible for those who believe and are prepared to work together for the common good. In an Australian context, it is of critical importance that we should not now lack the political will and the moral stamina to support the practical consequences of the Mabo judgment, I believe the most important judgment in our comparatively short history. Thirdly, in the face of a general tendency to retreat into secure havens of safety and let the rest of the world go by, Christianity proclaims our common humanity as sons and daughters of God. If the bell tolls, as many suggest, then it tolls for all of us, not just for the less fortunate parts of society. Christianity gives us a vision that is capable of overturning the petty enmities and jealousies that have driven us apart and provides us with a sense of solidarity that we will need more than ever in the future. Fourthly, because Christianity is concerned about ultimate meaning, it rejects simplistic and inadequate solutions for the present state of affairs and urges us to search together for radical solutions in the true sense of that word. If we, the older generation, allow our young people to grow up believing in nothing apart from unlimited freedom, then we can hardly complain in the future when they grapple with impossible problems that they accuse us of the worst type of betrayal. Allow me to finish with just a few words of advice for those who are graduating tonight. The words are taken from Bernard Lonergan, a Canadian Jesuit who had a profound influence on North American theology. He studied the process of knowledge in order to define the human person. He discovered that the human person is a self-transcending being defined by wonder. The ultimate sin for Lonergan is to inhibit wondering, to stifle necessary questions, or to make a judgment without allowing all relevant questions to surface. To act thus, he believed, is to betray our God-given nature and to experience the very worst type of alienation. To assist people in achieving authenticity, he suggested certain rules that he calls transcendental precepts. Those rules are: be attentive, be intelligent, be rational, be responsible, and finally, be in love in the wider sense of that word. I share these precepts with you on this your graduation night and offer them to you for your consideration. I congratulate you sincerely on what you have achieved. May the journey of life that lies ahead of you be the very sweetest of adventures, and may God's blessings go with you. Once again, my sincere gratitude to Griffith University for this honour of speaking to you tonight. May Griffith University continue to manifest the vision, the flexibility and the initiative that has made it an important force in the intellectual life of our city. May it continue to pursue its vision with determination and courage into the future. Thank you very much.